Life has a funny way of teaching us who we really are. 2 years ago, if you'd told me I'd be where I am today, successful, independent, and completely estranged from my family, I would have laughed in disbelief. But here I am, and it's quite a story to tell. I'm Jillian Matthews, and back then, I was working as a manager at TradeSync Solutions, a mid-sized trading company. I was good at my job, but like many women in their late 20s, I was starting to feel that societal pressure to settle down. I had a decent career and a small circle of close friends. My family consisted of my parents, who I was close to at the time, and my older brother Marcus, who was 2 years my senior and had always been the golden child of the family. Marcus and I had grown up together in suburban Boston, sharing the typical sibling rivalry but maintaining what I thought was a solid relationship. He was always the more outgoing one, the life of the party, while I was more focused on my career and building a stable future. Our parents doted on him, and I had learned to accept that as just the way things were in our family. It was at Jenny's housewarming party, one of those gatherings where friends of friends mingle over cheap wine and supermarket cheese, where I met Tom. He was charming in that understated way that sneaks up on you, with dark brown hair that fell slightly over his eyes and a smile that made everyone feel like they were in on some private joke. We got talking about our shared love of true crime podcasts, and before I knew it, 3 hours had passed. We exchanged numbers that night, and within a week, we were texting daily. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant downtown, where we talked until the waitstaff started giving us pointed looks about closing time. The second date turned into a third, then a fourth, and before I knew it, we were spending every weekend together. Tom was different from the other guys I dated. He seemed more mature, more focused on the future. 6 months into our relationship, we started talking about moving in together. He had a decent job in software sales, and we shared similar values about saving money and building a stable future. On our 1-year anniversary, Tom took me to the same Italian restaurant where we'd had our first date. He seemed nervous throughout dinner, fumbling with his water glass and checking his phone more often than usual. Just as our dessert arrived, he got down on one knee beside our table, pulling out a small velvet box. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear my own voice as I said yes. The ring was perfect, simple but elegant, just what I would have chosen for myself. As other diners applauded and congratulated us, I felt like I was floating on air. The weekend after our engagement, I brought Tom to meet my family. I was nervous, my parents could be pretty judgmental, and Marcus had a way of either making people feel instantly welcome or completely uncomfortable. There was usually no in-between with him. Mom opened the door before we even reached the porch. "There's my baby girl," she exclaimed, pulling me into a hug before turning to Tom. "And you must be the man who's stolen our Jillian's heart." Dad and Marcus were in the living room watching a football game. Marcus jumped up immediately, extending his hand to Tom. "So you're the guy my little sister won't shut up about," he grinned, giving Tom a firm handshake. "And you must be the infamous Marcus," Tom replied smoothly. "Gil's told me quite a bit about you too." The afternoon went better than I could have hoped. Mom insisted on showing Tom all my embarrassing childhood photos, despite my protests, while Dad grilled him about his job and future plans. To my surprise, Tom and Marcus hit it off immediately, especially when they discovered they supported the same football team. Finally, Marcus exclaimed during dinner, throwing his arm around Tom's shoulders. "I'd been dreaming of having a brother forever, but all I got was this troublemaker." He pointed at me with his fork. I stuck my tongue out at him. "Please, you wouldn't have survived without me covering for you all those times in high school." "True that, sis," he laughed, and the whole table joined in. The next few months were a whirlwind of wedding preparations. Mom took charge of the flower arrangements, Dad handled the venue negotiations, and Marcus appointed himself Tom's unofficial bachelor party planner and drinking buddy. They started meeting regularly for beers, and I was honestly thrilled to see my fiancé and my brother becoming such close friends. The wedding itself was simple, but perfect. We held it in my parents' backyard, with fairy lights strung through the trees and mason jars filled with wildflowers on the tables. Our closest friends and family were there, and when Tom kissed me after saying "I do," I truly believed this was my happily ever after. We moved into Tom's rented apartment after the honeymoon, a cozy one-bedroom in a decent neighborhood. That's when we started our saving plan for our own place. We decided to make it into a friendly competition, each of us putting money into separate accounts to see who could save more for the down payment. At first, it was fun. We'd compare takeout menus to find the best deals, have movie nights at home instead of going out, and cook elaborate meals together to avoid expensive restaurants. But about 3 months in, Tom started getting restless. "We're turning into an old married couple already," he complained one evening. "We're too young to live like hermits." I tried to remind him of our goals, showing him how much we'd already saved. "Think about it, in a few years, we could have our own place. Wouldn't that be worth it?" He would nod and seem to understand, but then Marcus started inviting him out for guys' nights on Fridays. At first, I was worried, but Marcus assured me he'd keep an eye on Tom. I believed him. After all, who better to trust with my husband than my own brother? And Tom would always come home in a better mood after these outings, more affectionate and understanding about our saving goals. So I learned to accept it, even look forward to having some quiet time to myself on Friday nights. A year into our marriage, I was feeling pretty good about our progress. My savings account was growing steadily. I had managed to put away just over $30,000. I had no idea how much Tom had saved. We'd kept that part of our competition private, but I hoped he was doing as well as I was. It was a Thursday evening when Tom dropped his fishing trip bombshell. "Marcus and I are thinking of going fishing this weekend," he announced over dinner. His friend has a cabin up at Lake Webster. I looked up from my pasta, surprised. "This weekend? I thought we could finally have some time together. You've been working late all week." "Come on, Gil," he grinned, his eyes lighting up like a kid at Christmas. "I haven't been fishing in ages. It'll be fun. Just us guys, some beers, maybe catch something worth bragging about." As if on cue, there was a knock at our door. Marcus burst in. He had a key for emergencies, though I was starting to question the wisdom of that decision. "Little sister," he boomed, spreading his arms wide. Please, pretty please let your wonderful husband come fishing with me this weekend." He dropped to his knees dramatically in front of my chair. "I promise I'll take good care of him. No wild parties, no crazy stunts, just 2 guys trying to outsmart some fish." I couldn't help but laugh. "Get up, you idiot. You're 40, not 4. "Not until you say yes," he insisted, giving me his best puppy dog eyes, the same ones that had gotten him out of trouble countless times when we were kids. They left early Saturday morning, loading the car with fishing gear and a cooler full of supplies. I spent most of that morning cleaning the apartment, trying to keep busy, but by afternoon I was climbing the walls with boredom. That's when I had an idea. Marcus's girlfriend Sarah and I had become pretty good friends over the past year. She was smart, funny, and seemed to genuinely make my brother happy. Maybe she'd want to go shopping. I could justify a small splurge from my savings for some girl time. I pulled out my phone and dialed her number. She picked up on the 3rd ring. "Hey Sarah, it's Jillian. Listen, the boys are off fishing, so I was wondering if you'd like to go shopping? Maybe grab some lunch?" There was a pause on the other end. "Fishing? Marcus isn't fishing. He's here with me at my place. We're getting ready to drive to my parents' house for the weekend. He's actually in the next room right now." My blood ran cold. In the background, I could hear my brother's voice. "Who's that, babe?" "Just my friend Lucy," Sarah replied, her voice slightly muffled. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, as the implications of what I'd just learned began to sink in. My husband and my brother had lied to me. But why? Where was Tom really going? "Sarah," I whispered, "please don't tell Marcus about this call. I need to figure something out. Just, please?" "Of course," she promised. "Are you okay?" "I don't know, I'll call you later." I hung up before my voice could break. For several minutes, I just sat there on our bed, my mind racing. Tom's laptop was on his desk, humming quietly in sleep mode. We had always been open with each other about passwords, or at least, I thought we had been. His was simple, his mother's birth date. I'd teased him about being too predictable, about needing better security. Now, that predictability was working in my favor. My hands trembled as I opened the laptop and typed in the password. His social media accounts were still logged in, he'd always been careless about that too. And then I saw her name, Rebecca. The message thread was extensive, going back months. With each scroll, each message I read, I felt my world crumbling around me. Can't wait to see you this weekend, baby. Your wife really bought the fishing story? Yeah, my brother-in-law's got my back. He's a legend. Ha, she's so clueless. Must be nice having such a trusting wife. They had been meeting almost every other weekend. Hotels, her apartment, even weekend trips disguised as work conferences or guys' outings. The level of detail, the casual cruelty of their jokes about me, the intimate photographs they shared, it made me physically sick. But worse was yet to come. There was a separate message thread with Marcus. My brother, protector, best friend since childhood. She totally bought it again, Tom had written just yesterday. Your sister's as gullible as ever. Huh, Marcus replied. Gil's always been a bit slow. Remember when we were kids and I convinced her that ice cream grew on trees? She's never gotten any smarter. You're the best wingman ever, bro. Rebecca says hi, BTW. Says thanks for covering with Sarah too. Anytime, what are brothers for? Besides, this is way more fun than actually hanging out with my boring sister. Hit me up when you're back, those strip club girls from last month have been asking about us. The messages went on and on. Plans for their guys' nights, detailed accounts of their visits to strip clubs, discussions about various women they'd met. Not only had Marcus been covering for Tom's affair, but he'd been actively participating in a lifestyle that would destroy Sarah if she ever found out. I read about how they laughed at my careful saving plans, how they mocked my dreams of owning a home. They joked about how I'd probably end up paying for everything anyway, since I was such a sucker. My own brother had called me stupid, naive, boring. The same brother who used to chase away bullies when we were kids, who'd held my hand at Dad's surgery 2 years ago, who'd cried at my wedding. The room was spinning. I ran to the bathroom and threw up, my whole body shaking. When I could finally stand again, I went back to the laptop. With methodical precision, I forwarded every damning message to my email account. Every cruel joke, every planned deception, every piece of evidence of their betrayal. I spent Saturday night in a strange, calm state of rage, methodically researching apartments and making calls. By Sunday morning, I had secured a furnished one-bedroom across town, paid the deposit from my savings, and signed the lease electronically. Tom came home around 3 in the afternoon, his face flushed and happy. He was carrying a convenience store bag with a few frozen fish inside, a pathetic attempt at maintaining his lie. Hey, babe, he called out cheerfully. You should have seen the ones that got away. I was sitting at the kitchen table, my laptop open in front of me. Without a word, I turned it toward him. On the screen was his conversation with Rebecca, including their plans for this weekend's rendezvous. You know what's funny? I said, my voice eerily calm. I actually expected you to at least try to apologize. He straightened up, his expression hardening. Why should I? You want to know the truth? You've become boring, Jillian. All you care about is saving money and planning for the future. Where's the fun? Where's the excitement? Even Marcus says what? I cut him off. That I'm stupid? Naive? That I'm such a sucker for believing my husband and brother would actually be honest with me? Look, he sighed, running his hand through his hair, maybe this is for the best. We're clearly wanting different things. You're right, I interrupted again, standing up. I wanted a marriage, you wanted a convenience. I grabbed my pre-packed suitcase from behind the couch. I'm filing for divorce. Don't worry about your precious savings, you can keep them. Though I doubt there's much left after all those strip clubs and hotel rooms. I spent the afternoon moving my essential belongings to the new apartment. It was small but clean, with basic furniture and a view of a small park. My savings, the money I'd been setting aside for our future, would now be my fresh start fund. That evening, I drove to my parents' house for their regular Sunday dinner. I knew Marcus and Sarah would be there, they always were after their weekends with her parents. Mom was setting the table when I arrived. Dad was in his usual armchair, and Marcus and Sarah were on the couch, looking like the perfect couple. "There's my girl," Mom smiled. "We missed you at lunch yesterday." "Yeah, about that." I looked directly at Marcus. "How your weekend covering for Tom's affair was, Marcus?" The room went dead silent. Marcus's face turned white. "What are you talking about?" Dad demanded. I pulled out my phone and started reading the messages aloud. The crude jokes, the strip club visits, the careful coordination of lies. With each word, Sarah's face grew more horrified. When I finished, she turned to Marcus, tears in her eyes. "Is this true?" He couldn't even look at her. "Sarah, please." The sound of her palm connecting with his cheek echoed through the room. "We're done," she choked out. "Everything, we're done." She grabbed her purse and ran out, the front door slamming behind her. After Sarah left, I expected my parents to be shocked, angry, disappointed in Marcus. Instead, my mother burst into tears, not for me, but for him. "Look what you've done," she cried, rushing to comfort Marcus, who sat with his head in his hands. "Your brother's relationship is ruined." I stared at her in disbelief. "Are you serious right now? Did you hear anything I just said? About how he helped Tom cheat on me? About the strip clubs? The lies?" "Oh, Jillian," Dad sighed, shaking his head. "Boys will be boys. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. Tom was just blowing off some steam, and Marcus was being a good friend." A good friend? I felt like I'd stepped into some bizarre parallel universe. "He helped my husband cheat on me. He lied to my face for months. And now you've destroyed his relationship with Sarah," Mom snapped. "Was that really necessary? Couldn't you have handled this privately?" Marcus lifted his head, his eyes red but dry. "Yeah, sis, real classy move. You just had to drag everyone into this, didn't you?" I looked between them, my mother stroking Marcus's hair like he was a wounded child, my father giving me that disappointed look he'd perfected over the years, and my brother, playing the victim as he had his entire life. In that moment, something inside me broke and reformed, harder and colder than before. "You know what? You're right. I should have known better than to expect any of you to take my side. Marcus has always been the golden child, hasn't he? He can do no wrong. Well, congratulations, you can have each other." I walked out of my childhood home that night and didn't look back. The divorce proceedings were surprisingly quick. Tom tried to claim half of my savings, arguing they were marital assets. "We agreed to save together," he said in mediation, trying to sound reasonable. It was our joint plan for our future. But even his parents, who'd stayed out of the whole mess, told him to drop it. "Don't make yourself look worse than you already do," his mother had said sharply. He withdrew his claim the next day. From mutual friends, I heard that Marcus and Tom were still thick as thieves. Without Sarah to keep him in check, Marcus had fully embraced the single life again. They were regulars at every bar and club in town, living it up like college freshmen instead of grown men in their 30s. Their social media was full of party pictures, groups of girls, and drunken adventures, not that I looked often, but word got back to me. Funny how clarity comes when you strip everything away. Without the distractions of a failing marriage or family drama, I could finally focus on what I wanted. And what I wanted was to succeed. I volunteered for every challenging project that came through TradeSync Solutions. The ones other managers avoided because they were too complex, too risky, or too time-consuming, I took them all. I stayed late, came in early, and poured every ounce of my energy into making each project exceptional. My first major success came with the Anderson account, a client everyone had written off as impossible to please. I restructured their entire trading framework, created new reporting systems, and increased their profitability by 47% in the first quarter. The CEO himself called to praise my work. That success led to bigger projects. I developed a new risk assessment protocol that saved the company millions in potential losses. I streamlined our international trading processes, reducing transaction times by 60%. Each victory built upon the last, and people started to notice. "Jillian, my boss called me in one day. How would you feel about joining the management team? We need someone with your vision." The promotion came with a corner office and a salary that made my eyes water. I celebrated by buying myself a sleek black Mercedes, not the most practical choice, perhaps, but I wanted something that would remind me every day of how far I'd come. 6 months later, I closed on my dream apartment, a 2-bedroom condo in the city's most desirable neighborhood. The mortgage payments were steep, but I could handle them. Every night, I would stand on my balcony overlooking the city lights, feeling proud of what I'd built on my own. I hadn't spoken to my family in all this time. No birthday calls, no holiday gatherings, no Sunday dinners. Sometimes I'd see their numbers on my phone, but I never answered. The wounds were still too raw, the betrayal too fresh. Then, on a random Tuesday evening, as I was reviewing quarterly projections in my new home office, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and few people had my new address. Through the security camera, I saw my parents standing there, looking older and more tired than I remembered. For a moment, I considered not answering. But something in their posture, the way Mom kept wringing her hands, how Dad's shoulders slumped, made me buzz them up. "Jillian," Mom started as soon as I opened the door, "you look wonderful. What do you want?" My voice was cool, professional, the same tone I used in difficult client meetings. They exchanged glances before Dad spoke. "It's about Marcus. We were wrong about him. About everything." They told me how Marcus had spiraled after Sarah left him. How his friendship with Tom had turned toxic, endless partying, drinking, hooking up with random women. How he'd started showing up to work hungover, then drunk. 2 formal warnings, one for being intoxicated at his desk, another for no showing an important client meeting. "He's been fired," Mom said, her voice breaking. "His references are terrible. No one will hire him. He's living in his old room now. He has no money, no prospects." "What exactly do you expect me to do about this?" I asked, leaning against my kitchen counter. The marble was cool against my palms, a small luxury I'd chosen for myself when renovating. Mom's eyes lit up with hope at my question. "Well, sweetheart, we know you're in management now. At such a prestigious company. We were thinking," Dad continued, "maybe you could find a position for him? Something suitable. With a good salary. It doesn't have to be anything too demanding." A laugh escaped my lips before I could stop it. "Let me get this straight. You want me to risk my professional reputation, which I built from scratch, to give a cushy job to the brother who betrayed me? The same brother who helped destroy my marriage?" "Jillian, that was 2 years ago," Mom pleaded. "People make mistakes." "Mistakes?" I straightened up, my voice deadly calm. "A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. A mistake is being late for dinner. What Marcus did, that was a choice. Multiple choices, actually. He chose to cover for Tom's affairs. He chose to mock me behind my back. He chose his friendship with my cheating ex-husband over his own sister. He's family," Dad argued, his face reddening. "Family forgives." "Really? Where was this family loyalty when I needed it? When I showed you proof of what they'd done to me? You sided with him then, remember?" "You're being unreasonable," Mom snapped. "If you don't help your brother, we'll disinherit you. Everything will go to Marcus." I looked around my apartment, at the art I'd chosen, the furniture I'd bought, the life I'd built without their help. Then I laughed again, genuinely this time. I don't need or want anything from you. I think it's time for you to leave. I walked to the door and held it open. I have an early meeting tomorrow. They tried to argue more, but I simply stood there, door open, waiting. Finally, they left, Mom in tears, Dad muttering about ungrateful daughters. As I closed the door behind them, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Through the window, I watched them get into their aging Volvo, the same car they'd had since I was in college. I thought about Marcus in his childhood bedroom, probably nursing another hangover, waiting for someone else to solve his problems like they always had. Last I heard, he was doing odd jobs around the neighborhood, mowing lawns, painting fences, anything to scrape together drinking money. Tom had eventually grown tired of partying with a broke friend and moved on. Karma, as they say, is a patient visitor. I poured myself a glass of wine, an expensive Bordeaux I'd bought to celebrate my last successful project, and walked out onto my balcony. The city stretched out before me, lights twinkling like stars fallen to earth. Below, I could see my Mercedes in its reserved parking spot, a symbol of everything I'd achieved on my own. Some might call me cold for turning my back on family. But family isn't just about blood, it's about trust, respect, and loyalty. Those who truly love you don't betray you, mock you, or try to manipulate you. They stand by you, support you, and celebrate your successes.
Hey there, I'm Olivia Henderson. The warm, comforting scent of freshly baked bread and cinnamon rolls has been the backdrop of my life for as long as I can remember. Our family bakery, Sweet Memories, has been my second home since I was tall enough to peek over the countertops. Olivia, darling, baking isn't just about following recipes. It's about feeling the dough, understanding how ingredients dance together, my grandmother used to say. Those words stayed with me even after she passed. When my mom, Patricia, took over the bakery, she brought her sharp business sense with her. I'll give her that, but the soul of baking, that's always been my territory. One morning, with flour-covered hands, I pitched a new idea. Mom, I've got a concept for a spring-themed cupcake line. She barely looked up from her spreadsheets. That's nice, honey, but have you seen last month's numbers? We need to focus on what sells. Then there's my sister Bella. While I was perfecting croissants, she was perfecting selfies. Liv, can you believe it? I hit 10K followers. Bella squealed, phone in hand as usual. That's great, Bells. Now can you help me with these orders? Flour ruins my manicure, she said, disappearing in a flash. Despite all that, I poured my heart into Sweet Memories, early mornings, late nights, whatever it took. But times were tough. New bakeries were popping up all over with gimmicky flavors and flashy marketing. We need to step up our game, I overheard Mom tell Dad one night. The old ways aren't cutting it. I pushed the thought aside and focused on what I could control: new recipes, higher quality, personal touches for our regulars. Still, the worry gnawed at me. Then last Friday, Mom dropped the bomb. Family meeting tonight after closing, she announced. Her tone left no room for argument. As I wiped down the counters that evening, my mind raced. Was this about a new direction for the bakery? Maybe Mom was finally ready to give me more responsibility. Little did I know, my whole world was about to crumble like an overbaked cookie. The family gathered in the bakery after hours. The air was thick with tension, mingling with the lingering scent of vanilla. Mom stood at the head of the table, her face unreadable. I've made a decision about the future of Sweet Memories, she began. My heart raced. This was it, my moment. Finally, years of hard work were about to pay off. I'm retiring, Mom continued, and it's time to pass the bakery on to the next generation. I couldn't help but smile. This was my moment. Bella will be taking over as the new owner and manager. The world stopped. What? I blurted out. Bella squealed, clapping her hands. Oh my gosh, really? This is amazing. Mom nodded, smiling. Bella's Instagram following is exactly what we need to boost our marketing. Her presence will be perfect for promoting the bakery. It felt like a slap. But I've been working here my whole life. I know every recipe, every customer. Oh, Olivia, Mom sighed. Baking skills aren't enough anymore. We need to modernize. Bella was already rattling off ideas. We can do influencer collabs, TikTok challenges, maybe even a reality show. This is crazy. Bella doesn't know the first thing about running a bakery, I protested. Don't be dramatic, Mom dismissed me. Bella can learn the business side. Her natural charisma is what we need right now. Natural charisma? I scoffed. You mean her ability to take selfies? Olivia, that's enough. Dad finally spoke up, but his eyes wouldn't meet mine. I turned to Bella. You can't seriously want this. You've never cared about the bakery. She shrugged, still grinning. It'll be fun. Plus, think of all the cute apron pics I can post. That was it. I'm the one who's kept this place running. I'm the one who actually cares. Olivia, please, Mom said, her voice cold. This decision is final. You need to accept it. I looked around, hoping someone would defend me, but Dad just stared at his hands and Bella was already on her phone, probably announcing her boss babe status. Fine, I spat. If that's how little you think of me, then I'm out. I grabbed my bag, my hand brushing the open account books. Something didn't add up in the numbers, but I was too angry to care. I slammed the door behind me, the little bell jingling like a taunt. As I walked home in the cool night air, my mind raced. How could they do this to me? Had my whole life meant nothing? Every early morning, every burned finger, every compliment from a customer, none of it mattered. And then the financial records came back to me, gnawing at my mind. Something was off. When I reached my apartment, I slammed the door and leaned against it, taking a deep breath. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Mom and Bella might think they've won, but they have no idea what I'm capable of. Sweet Memories is about to get a taste of something far more bitter than sugar. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. If Mom and Bella thought they could push me out, they had another thing coming. I headed to the bakery early before anyone else arrived. Just grabbing some personal items, I told Carl, our elderly night baker, as I slipped into the office. Quickly, I copied financial records and customer data onto a flash drive. Something was fishy, and I was determined to get to the bottom of it. Over the next few days, I reached out to our longtime customers and suppliers. Hey, Mrs. Johnson, it's Olivia. I'm working on a special project. Could you tell me about your recent orders? Piece by piece, I built a network and uncovered a clearer picture. What I found made my blood boil. Mom and Bella had been cooking the books for years, skimming money off the top. No wonder we were struggling. They'd been too busy lining their own pockets to invest in the bakery. I needed a new plan. I couldn't let them destroy Grandma's legacy. That's when it hit me. A food truck. I emptied my savings and bought a beat-up old truck. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I named it Rolling in Dough. The first day was terrifying. I parked near the local college, my heart pounding. Fresh pastries, get your gourmet treats here. I called out. At first, nothing happened. Then, a curious student approached, took a bite of my signature cinnamon roll, and her eyes widened. Oh my God, this is amazing, she shouted. Hey everyone, you've got to try this. Before I knew it, there was a line around the block. Word spread fast, and soon I had regular bulk orders for events, even a write-up in the local paper. Meanwhile, Sweet Memories was struggling. I kept tabs through my old contacts. Bella's influencer marketing wasn't pulling in customers like she'd hoped. Girl boss? More like girl mess. Judy, our longtime flour supplier, told me over coffee, your sister couldn't tell a croissant from a crescent roll. It was satisfying, but not enough. They needed to face real consequences for what they'd done. So I made an anonymous tip to the IRS, a suggestion that they might want to take a closer look at Sweet Memories books. A week later, my phone rang. It was Bella. Olivia, you've got to help me. She was panicking. The IRS is here. They're saying something about an audit. I took a deep breath. Oh really? That sounds serious. It is. Mom's freaking out. She says we could lose everything. You know about this stuff, right? Can't you come and help us? The temptation to gloat was strong, but I kept my voice neutral. Sorry, Bella. I'm kind of in the middle of something with my new business, you know how it is. But, she sputtered. Hey, I'm sure it'll be fine, I said, unable to keep a hint of satisfaction from my voice. After all, you've got all that natural charisma, right? I'm sure you can charm the IRS. I hung up, feeling a mix of emotions. Part of me felt guilty, but a bigger part felt like justice was finally being served. As I turned back to my food truck, seeing a line of happy customers waiting, I couldn't help but smile. Mom and Bella thought they could push me aside. Well, they were about to learn a hard lesson about messing with the wrong baker. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. I kept my head down, focusing on rolling in dough, but news from Sweet Memories trickled in through the grapevine. "You won't believe what's happening," Carl, the night baker, told me one morning as he bought coffee from my truck. "The IRS found years of tax evasion. Your mom and sister are in deep trouble." I feigned surprise, but inside, I felt a mix of vindication and sadness. "How bad is it?" Carl shook his head. "Bad. They're talking about heavy fines, maybe even jail time for your mom." Bella's been crying nonstop. A few days later, I saw the closed sign on Sweet Memories. It felt surreal. The place where I'd grown up, where I'd learned to bake, was shutting down because of greed and poor management. Meanwhile, Rolling in Dough was thriving. I'd saved enough to start looking for a small storefront, and when I found the perfect spot, I couldn't believe the irony. It was right across from Sweet Memories. As I was setting up shop, familiar faces started showing up. "Olivia, we heard you were opening a place," Sarah, our old cashier, said hesitantly. "We were wondering if you might need any help." I looked at her and Mike, our delivery guy, standing there hopefully. It felt right. I could use some experienced hands. "When can you start?" Their faces lit up, and just like that, I had a team. Opening day was a success. The line stretched down the block, filled with curious newcomers and loyal customers from my food truck days. As I was closing up that evening, a familiar figure approached. It was Mom. "Olivia," she said, her voice shaky, "can we talk?" I hesitated but nodded, letting her in. "I am so sorry," she began, tears welling in her eyes. "I made a terrible mistake with the bakery, with you, with everything." I stayed silent, allowing her to continue. "Your sister and I are in serious trouble. The fines, we might lose the house." Her voice cracked, and she looked down. "I know I have no right to ask, but is there any way you could help us?" For a moment, I was tempted. Despite everything, she was still my mother. But then I remembered all the years of being overlooked, undervalued, and finally cast aside. "I'm sorry, Mom, but no," I said firmly. "You made your choices. Now you have to live with them." "But we're family," she pleaded. "Family doesn't treat each other the way you treated me," I replied, my voice steady. "I think you should go." As she turned to leave, her shoulders slumped in defeat. I felt a weight lift off my own. I was finally free of their expectations, their judgment, and their toxic influence. The next few months flew by. My little bakery, rising above, became a local sensation. We expanded our menu, hired more staff, and even launched a small catering service. One day, while I was experimenting with a new recipe, Bella walked in. She looked different, humbled, tired. "Hey, Liv," she said softly, her tone uncharacteristically gentle. "Your place looks amazing." "Thanks," I replied, cautious. "What brings you here?" She fidgeted with her phone, the same one she used to be glued to. I wanted to apologize," she said, her voice wavering. "You were right about everything. I never appreciated what you did for the bakery, how hard you worked." I nodded, acknowledging her words, but not quite ready to forgive. "I'm glad you're doing well," she continued. "You deserve it. I hope someday we can be sisters again." As she left, I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to call her back, to try and mend things. But another part of me knew that sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is let go. Standing in my thriving bakery, surrounded by the warm scent of freshly baked bread and the chatter of happy customers, I realized something important. Success isn't just about profit margins or social media followers. It's about staying true to yourself, working hard for what you believed in, and knowing your worth. Mom and Bella had chosen their path, prioritizing quick gains and shallow fame over genuine passion and integrity. Now they were facing the consequences of those choices. As for me, I was rising above it all, one perfectly baked loaf at a time. And let me tell you, success tastes pretty sweet. The story has come to an end, but now I have a question for you. If you were in my shoes, would you have helped your mother and sister after discovering their betrayal and fraud, or would you have let them face the consequences of their actions alone? It's a tough moral dilemma. On one hand, they're family. On the other, they caused serious harm and showed little regard for my feelings or hard work. What would you do in this situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear your perspective. And if you enjoyed this story and want to hear more like it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Hey, I'm Jade, and let me tell you, life's no walk in the park when you're juggling two jobs. I'm 25, living in this concrete jungle they call a city, and my most prized possession is this beat-up Toyota. It's probably older than me, but it gets me from point A to point B, and in this rat race, that's all that matters. Jade, honey, can you pass the potato salad? That's my mom, the real MVP. She raised me on her own after my deadbeat dad bailed because fatherhood wasn't his thing. So I'm at this family BBQ, you know, the kind where everyone pretends they don't secretly hate each other. And then there's Uncle Frank swaggering around like he owns the place. Well, if it isn't my favorite niece, Uncle Frank booms across the yard. I roll my eyes so hard I swear I see my brain. Hey, Uncle Frank, how's business? I ask, not that I care. Booming, as always. You could learn a thing or two about success from me. Yeah, success in being a pompous jerk, maybe. And then there's my cousin Brittany, Frank's pride and joy, flashing her engagement ring like it's the Hope Diamond. Jade, did you see my ring? Direct proposed in Paris. It was so romantic. That's great, Britt, I'm happy for you. I lie, counting down the minutes until I can escape. But of course, Uncle Frank corners me by the grill, reeking of expensive cologne. Jade, my girl, we need to talk about Brittany's wedding. I feel a headache coming on. What about it? It's going to be the event of the season. Bali, 5-star resort, the works. But these things don't come cheap. Aha, I mutter, looking for an exit. We're expecting everyone to chip in, family duty, and all that. I almost choke. Chip in? Uncle Frank, I'm barely making rent. He waves his hand dismissively. Details. I've got it all figured out. That car of yours? It's seen better days. Why not sell it and contribute the money to Brittany's special day? For a second, I think I'm having a stroke. Sell my car. Are you out of your mind? I need it for work. Not now, don't be selfish. After all we've done for you. I cut him off. All you've done? Uncle Frank, you've never done jack for me or Mom. His face turns a lovely shade of purple. Listen here, young lady. This family always looks out for each other. It's time you pulled your weight. Sell the car, contribute to the wedding. It's not a request. After that disaster of a BBQ, I knew something was off about Uncle Frank's so-called success. It smelled fishier than week-old sushi, and I was determined to figure out what. First stop, Aunt Mildred, Dad's sister. She's always had loose lips, especially after a few gin and tonics. Oh honey, you wouldn't believe the stories I could tell you about Frank, she slurred over the phone. Remember that big promotion he got back in 08? Well, let's just say his boss's wife was very appreciative of Frank's overtime work, if you catch my drift. Bingo, I have my first lead. I spent days glued to my laptop, digging through public records and social media, and then jackpot. A string of fraud complaints against Uncle Frank's company. Time to call in the cavalry. I hit up my best friend, Marcus. Yo, what's good? He answered, probably buried in some coding project. I need your tech wizardry. How'd you like to help me take down a major Dutchback? I could hear him grinning through the phone. Girl, you had me at takedown. What's the plan? We met up at our favorite dive bar, the Rusty Nail. Between rounds of cheap beer, I laid out everything I'd found. Holy crap, Jade, your uncle's not just a jerk. He's a criminal jerk. We gotta nail this guy to the wall. That's where you come in, tech boy. I need access to his computer, his phone, everything. Can you do it? Marcus cracked his knuckles. Can I do it? Does a bear, well, you know, give me 48 hours, and I'll have more dirt on Frank than a pig in a mud pit. Meanwhile, the ballet wedding drama was turning into a full-blown soap opera. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Sweetheart, can you come over? I need to talk to you about something I found. I arrived to find Mom at the kitchen table, surrounded by brochures and a calculator. She looked like she aged 10 years overnight. What's up, Mom? You look stressed. It's this wedding, honey. Brittany's asking everyone to pay for their own flights and hotel rooms. I don't know how I'm going to afford it. My blood boiled. Mom, you can't be serious. That's ridiculous. I know, but it's family. Frank says it's the least we can do for Brittany's special day. I bit my tongue to keep from exploding. Mom, listen to me. You don't owe them anything. If they can't afford their fancy wedding, that's their asterisk problem. Just then, my phone pinged. It was Marcus. Jade, you're not going to believe what I found. I kissed Mom on the cheek. I gotta run, but promise me you won't do anything crazy like take out a loan for this wedding, okay? She nodded, but I could see the worry in her eyes. It only fueled my determination. At Marcus's place, he pulled up a series of documents on his computer. Check this out, he said, eyes gleaming. Your uncle's been cooking the books for years. Embezzlement, fraud, you name it. But that's not even the worst part. He clicked to another screen, and my stomach dropped. He's been scamming old folks, promising crazy returns on fake investments and draining their savings. I felt sick. We've got him, Marcus grinned. Oh, we're just getting started. I've got a plan, hidden cameras in his office, and with some social engineering, I can get access to his entire digital life. As we plotted, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Brittany. Asterisk Jade, darling, I hope you're excited about Bali. I had the most fabulous idea. How about you be one of my bridesmaids? Of course, you'll need to buy the dress. It's only $500, and you look absolutely divine, asterisk. I muted the call, resisting the urge to throw my phone across the room. Marcus, we need to move fast. These people are out of control. He nodded, his face serious. Don't worry, Jay. By the time we're done, Uncle Frank's going to wish he never messed with you or your family. Looking at the growing pile of evidence on Marcus's screen, I felt a mix of anger and satisfaction. Uncle Frank thought he was untouchable, but he had no idea what was coming. A storm was brewing, and I was about to rain all over his parade. Fast forward to the night of Brittany's big engagement bash. I'm all dolled up, looking like I stepped straight out of a magazine. But beneath this designer dress, I'm strapped with enough tech to make James Bond jealous. I roll up to the swanky hotel, crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, the works. Uncle Frank really pulled out all the stops. Jade, darling, you made it. Brittany squeals, air kissing my cheeks. And you're wearing the bridesmaid dress. I knew you'd come around. I force a smile, wouldn't miss it for the world. My phone buzzes. Asterisk everything's set. All systems go, Jay. Operation Karma is a go, asterisk. I make my way to the sound system, casually, like I'm just checking things out. That's when Uncle Frank grabs the mic. Friends, family, esteemed colleagues, he begins. We're here to celebrate love, but also family. Family is everything. I snort quietly, asterisk yeah. Right. Family's everything when you're bleeding them dry, asterisk. As he drones on, I slip the USB into the sound system. Showtime. Suddenly, Frank's voice booms through the speakers, but it's not his speech. These old farts are like ATMs. I'm telling you, just flash a fake prospectus, promise them the moon, and bam, they are forking over their life savings. The room goes dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Then another clip plays. Who cares if the company goes under? By the time anyone figures it out, I'll be sipping margaritas in a country with no extradition treaty. Frank's face turns ghostly white. He lunges for the sound system, but I'm quicker. What's wrong? Uncle Frank, don't like hearing yourself. Just then, the doors burst open, and in walk two cops. Francis Reeves, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and financial exploitation of the elderly. It's been a wild ride since Uncle Frank's perp walk at the engagement party. The family's been turned upside down, but honestly, it needed a shake-up. I'm at Mom's place, helping her sort through some bills when Aunt Karen barges in, her dramatic flair on full display. Did you hear? They've seized everything. Frank's accounts, the house, even Brittany's wedding fund. Mom looks shocked. Everything. But what about Brittany? The wedding? I can't help but snort. Pretty sure Bally's off the table unless she's cool with a beach made of concrete and barbed wire. Aunt Karen glares at me. This is all your fault, Jade. You've ruined everything. Asterisk my asterisk fault. Frank's the one who decided to play Bernie Madoff with other people's money. I just exposed the truth. Mom steps in, surprising me. Karen, that's enough. Frank did this to himself, and to all of us. Just then, my phone buzzes. It's Marcus. Asteriskio J, you're not going to believe this. Frank's company is offering a reward for whistleblowers. You're looking at a fat chunk of change, girl asterisk. I'm floored. For real? How much we talking? Enough to make a serious dent in your student loans, and then some. After I hang up, I break the news to Mom and Aunt Karen. Mom's eyes go wide. Oh honey, that's wonderful. You deserve it. After everything, Aunt Karen looks like she's sucking on a lemon. Well, I hope you're planning to share that money with the family. After all, we're all victims here. I laugh. You know what? You're right. I am going to share it. Mom, how about we pay off your mortgage? And I know Uncle Pete's been struggling since his layoff. Maybe we can help him out too. Aunt Karen's jaw drops. But what about Brittany and me? Sorry, Karen. Karma's a asterisk, isn't it? Weeks pass, and things start to settle into a new normal. I'm driving to my new job. Turns out, exposing corporate fraud looks pretty good on a resume. Later that night, I get a text from Brittany. K, cuz, got a sec to talk asterisk. Curious, I call her back. Jade, I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I had no idea what Dad was doing, and I was awful to you and Aunt Lisa. I'm silent for a moment, processing. Thanks, Britt. That means a lot. I'm working as a waitress now, she continues, living in this tiny studio. It's not what I'm used to. Welcome to the real world, cuz. It ain't always pretty, but it's honest. There's a pause, and then she asks, do you think maybe we could get coffee sometime? Start over. I think about it. Part of me wants to tell her to kick rocks, but yeah, Britt, I think we can do that. As I hang up, I can't help but smile. Life's funny sometimes. You think you know how things are going to go, and then bam, everything changes. The story's over, but let's talk. If you were in Jade's shoes, would you have exposed Uncle Frank's crimes, knowing it could tear your family apart? Or would you have kept quiet to maintain family peace? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We're dying to hear what you would do in this situation. If you enjoyed this wild ride, smash that like button and subscribe. Hi, I'm Ella Gordon. This morning I woke up bursting with excitement, imagining cake, presents, and maybe even a party. I rushed to the kitchen, hoping to see balloons or a banner, anything to mark that today was special. But when I got there, the kitchen was eerily quiet. No smell of pancakes or bacon like I'd hoped. Dad was at the table, his eyes fixed on his laptop, while Marianne, his new wife, was busy tapping away on her phone. Happy birthday, Ella, Dad muttered without looking up. Thanks, Dad. Are we doing anything special today? I asked, trying to hide the hope in my voice. Marianne finally looked up from her phone, her expression blank. Richard, did you tell her? Dad sighed, closing his laptop with a snap. Ella, we need to talk. It's about your room. My heart sank. My room? Yes, Marianne needs a proper office now that she's working from home full-time. We've decided to turn your room into that space. But where will I sleep? I asked, my voice trembling. You'll be staying with your Aunt Sarah in Newton, Dad explained, as if it was a minor change, not sending me away. A lump formed in my throat. For how long? This will be permanent, Ella. It's for the best. You'll like it at Sarah's, Dad said, his voice flat. But it's my birthday, I whispered, my voice cracking. Marianne stood up, smoothing her skirt. You'll understand when you're older. This is important for us, for the family business. I wanted to argue, cry, scream that it was unfair, but I knew it wouldn't change anything. So I went to my room, or what used to be my room, and started packing. A couple of hours later, Aunt Sarah arrived. She gave me the warmest hug as soon as she saw me. Happy birthday, Ella. I'm so sorry about all this, but we'll make sure you have the best time with us. The car ride to Aunt Sarah's was quiet. I spent most of it staring out the window, trying not to cry. When we got there, my cousins Alex and Jamie were waiting at the door, grinning and holding a homemade banner that read, Happy birthday, Ella. The rest of the day was a blur of cake, laughter, and games. Aunt Sarah made my favorite chocolate cake, and Alex and Jamie even got me a few gifts, including a telescope. For your love of stars, Alex said, winking at me. As the day ended, I lay in my new room, staring at the ceiling. Aunt Sarah had made sure it was filled with everything I liked. The walls were painted my favorite shade of light blue, and there were new drawing supplies and books about stars on the desk. "Thanks for making today special," I whispered as Aunt Sarah came to say goodnight. "Of course, sweetie. This is your home now, too." "We'll make sure you have everything you need," she replied, kissing my forehead. As I drifted off to sleep, I realized that maybe, just maybe, things could be okay here. Maybe despite how the day started, it could still be a happy birthday. Life at Aunt Sarah's was a lot different than back at Dad's. Here, every morning started with a big breakfast and a hug, not just a hurried slice of toast. Aunt Sarah was always up early, making sure Alex, Jamie, and I had everything we needed for school. She was a teacher at our school, so we all walked together most mornings, chatting about everything from homework to the latest school gossip. At school, I found myself actually enjoying the lessons, especially art and science, my two favorite subjects. Aunt Sarah was an amazing teacher, not just at home but in the classroom too. She had this way of explaining things that just made everything click. One day, while working on a group project about constellations, I shared my telescope view from the weekend. My classmates were so impressed, and my teacher even suggested I enter my project in the upcoming science fair. Meanwhile, I heard bits and pieces about Dad and Marianne from Alex and Jamie. Things weren't going so great. Marianne's business was struggling, something about losing a major client, and it was causing a lot of tension. Dad said they might have to sell the house if things don't get better. Alex whispered to us one afternoon as we worked on our homework in the living room. "Yeah, and Marianne was yelling again last night. I heard her through the phone," Jamie added, looking worried. I felt bad for them, sort of, but it was hard to really feel anything after how they treated me on my birthday. Aunt Sarah noticed us whispering and gave us a smile. "Why don't you three take a break? Let's go get some ice cream." As we walked to the ice cream shop, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. This was what family was supposed to feel like. We joked and laughed, and for a while, I forgot about Dad and Marianne. The science fair was a turning point for me. My project on constellations won first place, and I was even featured in the local newspaper. Aunt Sarah framed the article and hung it on the refrigerator, right in the center, like a medal of honor. "Look at that, Ella. You're a star," she joked, winking at me. "Yeah, and not just in astronomy," Alex chimed in, and we all burst into laughter. I started a small art project, painting scenes from the constellations I loved. Each star felt like a point of light in my new life, a tiny victory. That evening, as we sat down to dinner, Aunt Sarah raised her glass of water and a toast. "To new beginnings and bright futures." "To new beginnings," Alex and Jamie echoed. I smiled, warmth spreading through me. "And to stars, both the ones in the sky and the ones here with me." We clinked glasses, and I realized that no matter what happened, I was home. I was resilient, and this was just the beginning. I couldn't wait to see what else I could achieve, not in spite of my past, but because of my new beginning here with a family that truly cared. As months rolled by, I felt more connected to my new life in Newton with each passing day. My artwork started gaining attention, and I was invited to display my pieces at a regional exhibition. It was a big deal for someone my age, and Aunt Sarah helped me prepare every step of the way. The night before the exhibition, Jamie rushed into the kitchen, foam in hand, excitement in his eyes. "Ella, you have to hear this." He played a voicemail accidentally sent to Aunt Sarah's phone by Dad, intended for someone else. Dad's voice was shaky, filled with stress. "Tom Briggs has gone to the authorities. He knows about the Henderson deal. I don't know what I'm going to do if this gets out." I felt a mix of shock and curiosity. Tom Briggs, he was a name I remembered from Dad's old dinner parties, always spoken with a hint of respect and fear. "Dad's in trouble," I whispered, more to myself than to Jamie. "Yeah, and it sounds bad," Jamie replied, his tone serious. At the exhibition, as I set up my paintings, Aunt Sarah noticed my distracted look. "What's on your mind, Ella?" I hesitated but decided to tell her about the voicemail. As I explained, her expression shifted from concern to determination. "We can't control what happens there, Ella. But we're here now, and this, your art, is what matters today," she encouraged, her voice firm yet gentle. I nodded, taking a deep breath. The exhibition was crowded with people of all ages admiring the artwork. When they came to mine, I heard them praising the depth and emotion in my paintings. It felt surreal hearing strangers discuss my art so passionately. Meanwhile, back at Dad's, things were falling apart. Marianne's demands had drained their finances, and now with the fraudulent deal exposed, they faced not just monetary loss but a loss of reputation. Dad was suspended from work pending an investigation, and the stress was too much for Marianne. Her relationships with her clients deteriorated as her professional network learned of the scandal. A week later, while painting in my new studio, a small setup Aunt Sarah had helped me put together in the basement, I received a text from Dad. It was the first time he'd reached out since I moved. "Ella, I need to talk to you. It's important. Please." I stared at the message, conflicted. Part of me was furious, wanting nothing to do with him or his problems. Another part was curious about what he wanted, about how badly things had gone wrong. I decided not to respond right away, focusing instead on my painting. It was a piece inspired by the chaos of the stars, a swirling mass of colors and shapes that somehow found harmony on the canvas. It was like my life, chaotic and scattered at times, but finding new alignments and patterns that made sense in ways the old ones never did. As I added the final touches to my painting, I realized that, like my art, I was no longer defined by the fragments of my past, but by the new wholeness I was creating. No matter what Dad's message might mean, I knew I had the strength to face it, just like I had faced everything else so far. It was a sunny afternoon when I finally decided to call Dad back. Aunt Sarah stood by my side, offering silent support as I dialed the number. When Dad answered, his voice was tired and hollow. "Ella, thank you for calling back. I've made a mess of everything. I'm so sorry." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words, but also the strength of my new life bolstering me. "What do you need, Dad?" "It's all falling apart, Ella. I might lose my license to practice law, and Marianne, she's left. I don't have anyone. I was hoping you'd come back. Maybe we could start over." I paused, the offer hanging in the air. The old Ella might have jumped at the chance to return to what was familiar, but I wasn't that Ella anymore. "Dad, I have started over, but here, with Aunt Sarah and my cousins. I have school, art, a whole life that doesn't include feeling like I'm just in the way. I'm sorry you're in trouble, but I can't fix that for you." There was a long silence on the line, and then a soft, resigned sigh. "I understand. I guess I hoped. Well, it doesn't matter. Take care of yourself, Ella." "You too, Dad," I said, and then hung up. The days that followed were busy as I prepared for another art exhibition. This one was special. It was hosted at my school, showcasing young local artists, and I was one of the featured participants. As I arranged my paintings, each one a vibrant testament to my journey and growth, I felt a sense of accomplishment I'd never experienced before. The school gym was transformed into a gallery, with artwork hanging on every available space and small crowds of students, teachers, and community members milling around. Aunt Sarah was bustling about, ensuring everything went smoothly, while Alex and Jamie handed out programs at the door. I stood beside my paintings, ready to explain my work to anyone curious enough to ask. "This one is called Stellar Resilience," I explained to a group of younger students, pointing at a large canvas covered in swirling blues and silvers. "It represents finding order in chaos, something beautiful emerging from turmoil." As the evening progressed, the gym filled with laughter and chatter. The local news even stopped by, interviewing some of us about our inspirations and future aspirations. Toward the end of the event, I stepped back to take it all in. The gym was alive with color and sound, every piece of art telling its own story. I caught Aunt Sarah's eye across the room, and she smiled at me, her pride evident. As the crowd began to thin, Alex and Jamie joined me, each slinging an arm over my shoulder. "You did great, Ella," Jamie said, giving me a quick squeeze. "Yeah, you're like a celebrity now," Alex added, laughing. I laughed with them, feeling light and hopeful. "Thanks, guys. I couldn't have done any of this without you." The final scene was simple but powerful. My family and friends gathered around me, everyone chatting and laughing under the soft glow of the gym lights. I looked around at the faces of those who had supported me, who had helped me find my path, and I knew this was exactly where I was meant to be. With a genuine smile, I realized this wasn't just a new chapter in my life.